They say that if you wait long enough at the abandoned station just outside of Hollow Creek, you'll hear it. The sound of wheels grinding against rusty tracks, the mournful wail of a whistle cutting through the night air. It's not on any schedule, not listed on any timetable. The locals call it the midnight train, though few dare to speak of it at all. For those who do, whisper its name with trembling lips, knowing that some legends are not just stories. Some legends are warnings. Michael had heard the tales since he was a child. His grandmother used to hush him whenever he asked about it. "The train takes what it wants," she would mutter. "Don't follow the sound. Don't look for it." But Michael was a journalist now, a man of logic and evidence. Ghost stories were fuel for his articles, and the more terrifying the story, the more people read his work. He couldn't resist when someone mentioned the old Hollow Creek line. It had been closed for nearly 50 years. The tracks twisted into the forest, swallowed by weeds, the station left to rot. But people still whispered of the train, the one that arrived without a driver, without passengers, yet never empty. They said anyone who boarded never returned. Michael planned to spend the night at the abandoned station, his recorder, camera, and notebook at the ready. He arrived just before midnight, the moon hidden behind clouds, the wind rattling the broken timbers of the platform. The air smelled of rust and damp earth. He waited, telling himself that nothing would come, that he would go home with a story of silence. But then he heard it. At first it was faint, a low rumble that made the ground tremble beneath his feet. The sound grew louder, the unmistakable grinding of iron wheels on rails that had not been touched in half a century. Michael's heart began to race. His flashlight beam shook as he aimed it toward the tracks. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then it appeared. The train emerged from the darkness like a phantom. Its cars were blackened and corroded, windows shattered, doors hanging loose. Yet it moved smoothly, as though the rusted rails were newly polished. Its headlight glowed faintly, sickly yellow, like the eye of a dying beast. The whistle blew, a long, sorrowful cry that seemed to echo inside Michael's chest. The train screeched to a halt in front of the platform. For a long moment nothing happened. Then with a slow groan, the doors slid open. The smell that spilled out was overwhelming. Damp, rot, and something metallic, like blood. Michael's instincts screamed at him to run. But curiosity, that cursed human trait, rooted him in place. He raised his camera, snapping pictures of the empty cars. Empty, or so he thought. Because in the shadows he saw movement. Figures hunched in the corners, their forms twisted, faces hidden. Passengers, but not alive. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark, watching him, waiting. And then he heard the conductor. A tall, gaunt man in a tattered uniform stepped into the doorway. His skin was ashen, his eyes black hollows. He lifted a skeletal hand and tipped his cap. His voice was barely a whisper, yet it carried clearly through the night. "Ticket, please." Michael's breath caught in his throat. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. The conductor smiled, revealing teeth far too sharp, far too many. "Step aboard. There's always room for one more." Michael stumbled back, shaking his head. He knew the legends. Once you boarded, you never came back. The train would take you to places no human should ever see, to stations that existed only in nightmares. He turned to run, but his legs felt heavy, sluggish, as though the air itself clung to him. The whispering began then. Voices rising from the train, from the shadows inside the cars. Countless voices layered one upon another, chanting, pleading, commanding. "Come with us. Join us. You belong to us." Michael pressed his hands over his ears, but the voices were inside his head now. He staggered, dropping his flashlight. Darkness swallowed him. When he looked up, the conductor was inches away, holding out a faded, crumpled ticket. Michael's hand moved without his consent. He took it. The moment the ticket touched his skin, the world shifted. The air grew colder, his breath forming mist. The platform dissolved into shadows and the forest melted away. He was standing on the train now, surrounded by the dead. Their faces were pale, eyes hollow, mouths opening in silent screams. The doors slammed shut behind him with a deafening clang. The train lurched forward. Michael ran down the aisle, But every door led only to more cars, each one more grotesque than the last. In one, he saw rows of skeletons strapped to seats, heads lolling against cracked windows. In another, passengers with stitched mouths stared at him, tears of blood running down their cheeks. He tried to escape, but the train never ended. Car after car stretched into infinity, and always the conductor followed. No matter how far Michael ran, when he turned, the gaunt figure was there, smiling, whispering, "Next stop, forever." Time lost all meaning. Minutes, hours, days. Michael couldn't tell. He was trapped in motion, carried endlessly forward. The whistle blew again, and the sound pierced his skull, filling him with unbearable agony. He pressed his hands against his ears, but it only grew louder, louder until he screamed. Then silence. Michael opened his eyes to find himself standing in a station, but it was no station he had ever seen before. The platform was cracked, covered in weeds. The air was thick with fog. Strange shapes moved in the mist, shapes that looked almost human but not quite. Signs above the platform were written in a language he could not read. He realized with horror that the passengers were disembarking. They shuffled past him, their hollow eyes fixed on nothing. Some had no faces at all, just blank skin where their features should have been. Others whispered in languages long dead. Michael turned to run, but the conductor's hand clamped down on his shoulder. "This is your stop," the conductor rasped. Michael shook his head violently. "No, I don't belong here." The conductor's grin widened. "Everyone belongs somewhere. And now, you belong here." The passengers closed in, their whispers rising to a deafening chorus. Michael struggled, fought, screamed, but the mist swallowed him. His voice became just another in the endless crowd of whispers, another soul claimed by the cursed train. Back in Hollow Creek, the locals still talk about the journalist who vanished one night at the old station. They say if you wait by the tracks, you might see his face pressed against the train windows as it roars by at midnight, his mouth open in a silent scream. And if you listen closely, above the whistle, above the grinding of wheels, you might hear him whisper, "Don't get on. Don't take the ticket. Please don't take the ticket." But the conductor doesn't care. The train always comes, and it always takes someone new, because the cursed train never runs empty.